So your green sandwich, I'm gonna have to get your tomatoes here weighed out so that I can add some, because I have
some red to go with the green,
cucumber, and cilantro on there, and then you have the broccoli soup. So
yeah, a lot of green here.
Yeah.
The apple stuff is kind of brownish. So much green. It's left over from this morning because I drank the carrot juice. There's a big score today.
Yes.
That's just from my place. You've already done your...
So you go ahead and talk about that Blackfoot grammar.
Yeah, there we go. So Blackfoot grammar. There you go. In the small print here. Donald G. French. This is the guy who taught me Blackfoot grammar back in the day. It wasn't that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And there's a companion volume, Blackfoot Dictionary. It's significantly thicker. And one of these days I'm going to review that once I've finished that. Now, I'm reviewing this before I finished it out. But that's before I finish it up for the 5th time. So don't get all excited and be hoping to make a straw man out of me. Hey, he reviews stuff without actually finishing it up. Yeah, this guy taught it to me. He taught Cree to me, Cree grammar, the same semester, not exactly at the same time, a slightly different time, so he could teach both of them. I think it was almost like in tandem, one and then the other. Maybe it was on separate days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for one, and Tuesday, Thursday. No, it was 50-minute sessions for one. So, yeah, there's the 3rd edition. It's put out by, let's just see if I've got it right. I'm pretty sure it's the University of Toronto. University of Toronto Press, Toronto, Buffalo, London. I like the fact that they go for Buffalo and not New York. Buffalo's way more important in the state of New York than New York, Boston. At any rate, always hard luck, when it comes to their sports teams. The Sabres, I don't know if the Sabres have ever won Stanley Cup, one of the few hockey teams that haven't, and the NHL at least. And let me think, have the Buffalo Bills, they went to the, I think they went to the Super Bowl 4 times. It was actually a very good team. Anyone watching from Buffalo, you should be proud of that team. What was it? Jim Kelly, very well, as far as football players go, a very smart guy. He could basically run an offense without help from the sideline and things like that. I think Buffalo maybe suffered a little bit because, they'd be a cold weather team and they'd have to play the Super Bowl in beautiful weather. I mean, like Minnesota Vikings suffered in the 70s. Another team that went to the Super Bowl 4 times and never won one. So if you're watching from Minnesota and Minneapolis, St. Paul, whatever, St. Cloud. Is there a place called St. Cloud in Minnesota? I believe there's. That was a good team, coached by Bud Grant, a good American fella, but he cut his teeth coaching in the Canadian Football League. And that was a real cold weather team. I mean, they had the purple people eaters up front. You played up in Minnesota, it's almost as bad as playing in Green Bay in the 60s. You were going to get some purple bruises on you. And they had a little flea of a guy called Fran Tarkenton. He was into his 30s, I think, when he was doing this sort of stuff. But, of course, his build was made for icy conditions. He had some of these stupid guys that never really had to play in ice, and they'd get him all lined up, and he'd give one little flick of his head, and they'd go flying down the field 50 yards. And meanwhile, he wasn't much for gaining yards, but he'd gain a lot of time. And for a while there, he was close to a record holder for. So Fran, if you're still alive, still watching, you're one of the players after my own heart, I've got to say. Anyway, Buffalo, and was London the other place? That would be London, but not London, Ontario. So thank you, University of Toronto Press. You're actually doing something worthwhile here. Thank you, Don France. He was, I think, he turned 81 the year he taught me um, Blackfoot grammar and Cree grammar, and I think he's still going relatively strong. He's been working on, I think it's something like Tiwa near Taos, Mexico. I think he's basically finished that one up, and hopefully he keeps on going till he dies with his boots on. Hopefully that's something like over 15 years from now. It's possible to do that. I think he's got a pretty sensible lifestyle, much like my dad. So Don, if you're watching, my dad's 98 and more than a half years old, and hopefully you keep on doing the work with the linguistics and stuff like that. And definitely was worth whatever funding he got from whatever sources. Let me see, Canada Council for the Arts. I mean, this is something that's really important, not the usual stuff that they fund. And Ontario Arts Council funded this too. That would be funding to the University of Toronto Press, I guess, more than anything else. So. And then, of course, there'd be public funding for the University of Lethbridge. For the longest time, he was an instructor there, a regular instructor. By this time, by the time he was teaching me, he was a professor emeritus, a retired professor. So is this worth it? Darn tooting it is. And it's going to be a little bit hard for you if you don't have much of a background in linguistics, but he does explain pretty well anything that's of a linguistic nature in here. It's a little bit weird. I mean, you've heard of first, second, and third person in, I, you, and it. But in these Algonquian grammars, they got a fourth person. You can either have fifth or sixth.
Do you want to guess at your poundage?
Poundage
today?
is going to be 3.5 pounds.
6 pounds,
Holy smokes.
14.3 ounces.
But you'll notice how I always try to underestimate stats. You can't take what I say as gospel truth. Please check out. But don't be all cynical about whatever statistics I've got. I should mention, just in case, like I was mentioning, I'd just woken up and I was saying China owes all the people it's killed because of its criminal. That's criminal negligence in the death of 5 million plus people. It's probably more like 10 million when you count all the people in India who haven't been counted properly, and all the people who died in India. And China owes, I figure, at least $1 million for wrongful death for each person that they've allowed to die. And I was saying that's 5 quadrillion, but it would come out to 5 trillion, of course counting. So it's probably 10 trillion. So you better, China, People's Republic of China, be saving your shekels up, you useless pukes. And you'd better be ready to pay reparations for all the economic fallout, but also all the horrible fallout you should be paying around the world to the survivors of everyone who's died of COVID. Everyone. $1 million per person, and that should probably be a minimum. Okay? So save up your shekels, you useless pukes. And what were we? Did we hear anything on CBC when we were coming down, or were we just listening to Fleetwood Mac?
We were listening to Fleetwood Mac.
We were listening to Fleetwood Mac, and we were listening to a lot of stuff produced by Lindsey Buckingham. Hang in there, Lindsey had a heart attack a while back, and it's shocking because he looks as though he's kept himself in shape and things like that. He hasn't eaten too many Twinkies or whatever. I'm not sure if he's a smoker. His face seems to have survived pretty well. So, but it just happens. Sometimes people have a constitutional susceptibility to heart attacks and stuff like that, stroke. So
I've put these ones for you to eat.
Yeah.
I don't know what is
That's a
going
little
after
worm in
them.
there, right?
Well, no, there's nobody in there, but
Well,
they
maybe
keep
just-
making a hole.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
Might have been a bird.
or...
Yeah, it could have been a bird. There's lots of birds in my yard.
I mean,
Not as
you
many
lost
as
a
you.
lot of your potential tomato harvest to the deer. Those.
Well, I mean, they were chewing off the leaves, but
really
I'd rather have them going
pulled
after
them
the
down.
tomatoes. They've been going after that's one of the reasons why those apple trees, those columnar apple trees, or the crab apples, have not had leaves. You'll notice
Yeah,
how
'cause they
you
keep
get up.
trimming them off.
I
Yeah.
thought it was because it was getting sun over the fence. No, it's too high for the deer to reach.
Ah.
So they must have
Well, they
sweet
could
leaves.
probably stand on their leaves or legs or something.
Maybe. Anyway, I think
Exactly.
that's the reason. I think they might be a little too lazy to stand on the legs. I don't know. But I'd rather have them going after the
Maybe
tomatoes.
why do it
and-
if you don't have to?
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of other stuff to go after there. I don't think they'd go after the oregano. It'd probably be a little too spicy for their taste buds. Hard to say. The
Maybe.
oregano does well. I mean, it thrives on neglect. You know,
Yeah.
like
But they've been going after whoever it is. They've been, because this one's healed up again.
yeah. I think it's birds. Don't the birds do that stuff with the apples?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. And they'll take a peck out of a cherry or whatever. I wish they'd take the whole thing, but they probably can only eat so much at a time. You know, because really, when you think about it, birds have so little flesh on the bone. You know?
Yeah.
So we tend to think of them as being a lot, but a lot of it's just fluff off of
Yeah, you might as well
fluffy
take this one too.
fluffiness of feathers. Yeah.
But yeah, I do love these tomatoes though. They're a very attractive color. Nice pink.
They're nice. I mean, they're a huge variety of tomatoes. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
And you know, I just wish our season was a little bit longer this time.
This one's a heart.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
If
Where
you look
you'll-
at it this way, it looks like a face. See it? has-
There we go. It's kind of smiling. It
Yeah.
looks like a pudgy kind of face, something out of Dickens or something like that.
Yeah.
So, were you a little late at getting them in the ground this year, the tomatoes? Not really.
It's not my fault.
No, it's because
spring.
it was a late spring.
It was a
It's
very
definitely-
late spring.
So that's why we're kind of having a late summer, and this is good, because otherwise, I mean, we're seeing a lot of red and orange and stuff like that, but there's a huge number
Oh,
of green
I'm gonna
ones.
slice up some red onion for your sandwich too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So I don't know. You have anything else to talk about?
Well, it's just this is recommended, but put on your linguistic thinking cap when you do it. Get ready. I mean, it's what only I'm willing to bet it's less than 300 pages. It's less than 200 pages, but it's like freeze dried. You're gonna have to add water and stir. There's a lot of stuff in it.